And welcome to RealAg Live, everybody. I'm your host, Sean Haney. Thanks a lot for tuning in. This is actually our first Friday show. As we've been promising for a while, we are intending to do this 5 days a week, and this week we have completely followed through on that promise. Today we're going to talk about family farm business, succession, all the things that make up that family farm business unit. It's complex. It's a topic that is not simple, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with today's guest, who has sat in many kitchen tables across this country trying to help out family farms. If you have a comment or a question for today's guest, all you have to do is type it into the comment box, whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Twitch. We love participation from the audience, and that's where you come in. So let's get to today's guest. Let's bring her in here. It is Elaine Froese. Hey, Elaine, how are you?
Hey, happy Friday, Sean. Congratulations.
Yay, and it's Thanksgiving weekend, which is a great weekend. Elaine, my views on this are pretty clear. It's the best holiday of the year.
Oh, good. And that's because your mom makes such great pie, or why?
Well, it's just I like it. Here's I'll give you the quick spiel. The quick spiel is that you get the same meal as Christmas. The weather is better.
Yes.
There's way less family pressure. Like, it's not like, wow, you're only spending a half day with us. How come not a full day? Like, there's way less pressure. People are way more relaxed. It's just a nice holiday.
Good. I'm glad. And it's really special for us on our farm this year, Sean, because we actually finished harvest on Tuesday.
Woo! Oh, congratulations.
So in 2019, our corn went in the bin on December the 18th. And if you recall, last year in 2019, we had in Manitoba anyway, where I live in southwestern Manitoba, we had 2 feet of snow on Thanksgiving weekend. So we ate our turkey alone last year. So we're just looking forward to having it with other family.
Well, since it is our first Friday show, the guests are chiming in already, or the audience is chiming in already. Brian Voth says, what is the appropriate beverage for a Friday edition of RealAg Live? Well, today it's carbonated spring water, but I will stop at the pub on the way home, Brian. Kara says, we deal with many different time zones here, so I believe it's 5 o'clock somewhere, if that works for you. Absolutely. Okay, Elaine, this is awesome stuff. You got a new book coming out, Farm Family Coach Insights. People can pick it up at Amazon. What was the purpose of this book? What's your objective?
Well, first of all, it's a celebration book, Brian, because I've been working for writing in Grain News as a farm columnist for 25 years. So March 15th, 2020 was my 25th anniversary. And so I've been writing for a long time, and this is a book to encourage farm families just to keep working on their family communication and find harmony through understanding and keep things rolling in the right direction. So it's basically a compilation of my last few years of writing again.
So, Elaine, you're working in an area of agriculture, and you and your husband Wes do farm yourselves. So you know this better than anybody, that like your work is really not done. Like we're not erasing or eradicating all of the challenges, right? So how do you, as a family farm coach, how do you deal with that where there's always the next challenge?
So my highest value, Sean, is relationships. And so my next challenge when I'm working with farm families or even working in our own family, I did a succession plan with Norman and Lois Eady in Dugald, Manitoba, who are my parents, and some people will know them on this call. I did that succession with my mom and dad in 1998, and unfortunately she died 6 weeks later, unexpectedly. I did one in 1992 with my in-laws, Wes's parents, Abe and Margaret Froese, where we purchased the farm from them. And then just recently, our son Ian has become part owner of our Boys of Eden Select Seeds business. So I'm in a succession plan with my son and his wife and our 3 grandchildren. So it's a journey. It's never done. That's what you said. And I read something in Country Guide this week that was quite disturbing. It always disturbs me when they say, this has to be hard and it's going to take a lot of energy. Yes, it will take a lot of energy, but Sean, I want the folks listening to this Friday afternoon RealAg Live to just really understand that we got to shift our mindsets because it's time to get things done. And what you just said is also true. It's never done. And farmers hate that because farmers love Roundup, right? I call it the Roundup solution. They want things fixed within 10 days. They want to see something happening. They want get her done, right? That's the motto of Alberta, is just get her done.
Yeah.
Well, you try and you do your best, but if you have the mindset that we're just going to keep taking the next step and we're going to build a really good team of advisors, I seriously think a lot of people will be happy by next April if they really put some focus on this winter on what are the gaps that we need to fix with our family relationships, our family circle, our management circle, and our ownership circle, and just keep taking the next step and don't beat yourself up in the process.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot on this show and RealAg Radio. We've written stories on realagriculture.com about how, across the country, fall's been pretty spectacular. And
Yes.
people are getting a lot of work done, fall weed control, getting the winter crops planted. If you're doing any tillage, setting that seed bed for next year.
Gates in the corn.
I haven't thought about it this way, but it's also a great opportunity because we're getting all this fall work done to spend some time on our farm business relationship amongst the family, whether that's, getting your succession plan finished, or maybe it's repairing some of the relationships that felt some strain during the growing season.
And I typically get a lot of calls. You love to go home and you love the food at Thanksgiving, Sean, at your house, but it's quite often that this week before Canadian Thanksgiving, I get a lot of phone calls because there's a lot of unwritten expectations, right? Elaine, I don't want to go home. I don't want to keep facing the family dynamic and the tension and the conflict. And then I'm, as a conflict resolution specialist, I'm saying, hey, conflict's not bad. It just needs to be resolved. And so I just want to give people a sense of hope and a sense of finding harmony through understanding. So this weekend, when you're sitting down for Thanksgiving dinner, please celebrate as a family, because strong families celebrate. And don't get into those really tense, highly conflictual issues at the turkey dinner. Please just park that for another day, or else say, Mom and Dad, I really appreciate celebrating with you. I have some concerns. Oh, and by the way, here's a letter I wrote because Elaine told me to write this letter before I came. You can read it after I leave, and then we'll talk about it when we meet next time.
So have your family Thanksgiving supper. Say it's on Sunday.
Yes.
Have that family supper. It's a family supper. Don't make it a staff meeting, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yes. Don't mix the two. It's not a good mix. It's like oil and water. It's not a good thing.
It happens though. It's easy for it. It's easy for it. You can have those intentions, Elaine, but it can just sort of slide into that sort of situation.
I know. It's called letting it go, Sean. And again, just some really key phrases, like saying, I know that this is really important to you, but I'm not ready to talk about this tomorrow, but I have scheduled a meeting for tomorrow afternoon before you go home. So we're going to meet tomorrow at 11 o'clock or something, or let's just park that. We call it the parking lot, Sean. Put it on the parking lot, but don't put it on the parking lot forever, but park it until you actually are prepared to sit down and talk about the tough issues. And you might need to invite me to come in on a Zoom call.
There
so
you
if
go.
It's going to be tense, invite somebody who's not related to your family.
Well, some of these issues, you say the parking lot reference, some of these issues, I think some people would like to park them at a parkade. When you forget where you parked your car. Right? I've done that at the Calgary airport before, where I've parked and I've spent the next hour and a half looking for my vehicle.
Hey man, I could do that in the Boys of Ain Co-op parking lot these days when your head gets too full of other things. That's not hard to do. But we're joking about it, but it is very serious, and it's a huge barrier. And with the pandemic, which I like to call the Great Pause, I've got farmers calling me, Sean, who say, Elaine, if I didn't make it through this health-wise, I would leave my family in chaos. And I'm tired of those fearful stories. I want to switch it to hashtag healing stories for ag. So let's copy success. My succession plan with my in-laws was textbook wonderful. And our succession plan with our son is very good because it's an ongoing process. We do this, we wait for 2 years for tax things to work out, and then heck, our accountant and our tax specialists actually come and sit on our couch. And now with the digital processing, I don't know if your listeners know this, but you can even get your wills updated now online, Sean. You don't have to physically go and and be in front of a lawyer to sign anymore. You can do it digitally through their digitally witnessing programs. So there's no excuse, even though we're virtual, like this conversation you and I are having, there's really no barriers left for people getting this done other than the want to.
Got a comment here from Heather Watson, who's watching on Facebook. Great advice. As entrepreneurs at heart, we often don't take time to celebrate our successes and reflect on what we're grateful for. I think that's
Yes.
very, very true. It's kind of it's sort of, I think a lot of us grew up on farms where you just, there's lack of celebration sometimes.
And if you look at the research, it's very clear that strong families celebrate. You also look at the research of Dr. Nikki Gerard, who wrote a study in Saskatchewan after 12 years of studying farm families. She said the three things that will keep you bouncing back, Sean, in these tough times is, first of all, the ability to communicate. So don't stop talking to each other because that's conflict avoidance. The second thing is the ability to be connected to community, which is different now with hockey and with curling and with all the community activities shifting and how that's going to look. But the third thing that's really important, according to her research, is celebrate the good. And we just passed a third anniversary of my husband's accident in his truck when he was checking soybeans 3 years ago. So we're just grateful for life. We're grateful for grandchildren. We're grateful for health and good food. And I would like everybody on this call just to be thankful for living in a great country. And so I think we have lots to be thankful for. And yes, it's tough. We're not recognizing that, a lot of people are struggling financially, and there's a lot of tension in the farm dynamic because of what was already there before the pandemic hit. So let's just be sensitive to each other.
So I think to give the counterpoint to, we were talking about, family, Thanksgiving supper on Sunday, don't bring in the business side of it. But when you have that staff meeting, that planning meeting, or discussing some of those tough business issues on the Monday, don't slide family into that discussion and cross swords there either.
Well, again, it's I have these two little rings I usually pull apart, the family system and the business system, and so I can't read the logo on your hat right now, Sean, but you are wearing a hat.
I am, yes.
And
my
so
hair is not maroon.
So let's just use the metaphor of the hat. So am I, and pretend I'm your mother and I'm in business with you. So am I talking to you right now as your mother, or am I talking to you as your business and business president and your equity shareholder, right?
Right.
And so same with my son. I literally sometimes say, I'm talking to you right now as your mother and I'm concerned about this. And then I might use a different phraseology and say, look, I'm talking to you as my business partner, and we need to talk about some things here that we're not addressing. So be very clear, and also, again, stay calm. And I have, with me again, Sean, my Beanie Baby bowl, which I did a podcast. Some guy did a podcast with me recently just because of my Beanie Baby ox, because he thought that was interesting. But a talking stick is not a bad thing. It's a really good tool to use.
It's like Survivor. Don't you have the stick or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is my shtick right here.
Yeah.
This is Beanie Baby ox. Yeah.
Hey, a question here from Kara. How do you? She's watching on Facebook. How do you encourage this communication? How do you get through to the conflict avoidant personality? Elaine, did you hear me?
So two things there. Communicate. Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
You kind of wobbled out of there, but you're back. So communication is, everyone in communication needs to understand you always get to choose your response, Sean, your tone of voice, and how you're going to receive messages. So if you're in a highly conflictual situation, you get to choose to stay calm. You get to choose to be respectful, because you have no power on how the other person is going to respond to whatever you're trying to chew through, but you have total control over you. So you be you and show up in a safe, calm, respectful manner. And with a conflict avoidance style, I always encourage people to come from curiosity. So my question for Kara would be, Kara, what is it that you're curious about? What do you really want to find out from the other person? And then use those words. I'm really curious that every time I bring up the fact that I need to be compensated more on this farm, you start running the other direction, or you throw the bank book at me and you just say we don't have enough money.
Right.
And quite frankly, tired of you shutting this conversation down. So I have prepared a list of requests here. And then Kara takes this list of requests and she pushes it across the table and says, and I'm assuming it's Dad, I'd really like you to look through this list and consider all of my requests. And we'll meet again here next Tuesday at 1:00 and we'll start dealing with these in whatever order you want to deal with. So what you've just done is you've de-escalated the conversation. And I just can't shout it from the mountaintops loud enough, Sean, that conflict resolution is a business risk management strategy. You get really good at conflict, you'll be unstoppable. And for the millennials listening, you need to really up your conflict game, because a lot of you young people have been taken care of for far too long by your parents and they got you out of trouble. That stops now. You start creating your own solutions. You start yielding and adapting. And how about even putting yourself in Dad's shoes? Because if Dad's not having the conversations with you that you want to have, my curiosity, have you ever thought about what Dad is thinking, feeling, needing, and wanting, rather than just getting mad at him? Because there are a lot of really sore, tired, older farmers who are deathly afraid, Sean, that their businesses that they've built up over the last 40 years are going to go down the tubes if they don't have some kind of input.
Yeah.
And so the curiosity is, what is that going to look like as you make that shift?
Okay, we got a couple more questions here, Elaine. The audience is fired up. They want answers. Okay, here we go. Here's another one. Question from Facebook. Do you see a difference between men and women in terms of how they face priorities and resolve conflict? Have you seen changes in how men and women respond over the 20 years of experience that you have?
Yes, I would say the biggest difference is that people are tired of waiting, Sean. And the other thing, like I started practicing as a home economist in 1978, which is 42 years ago. I've been a certified coach since 2003. So I've been doing this work for a long time with different venues of modalities of farm families. What difference I am seeing now is, if you look at the Canadian Human Farm Research Council, or can't even remember the right name of it, but the woman who keeps track of the number of agricultural jobs in Canada, the gap is larger than 58,000. So the deal is here is that if you don't like the family business that you're in or the farm that you're in, you have choices. And I have actually coached 3 families this year to leave. And I don't do that carelessly, but there's a book by Dr. Henry Cloud called Necessary Endings. So the difference in conflict in agriculture now is that you're not stuck on that farm. You have lots of other options. And I had one young couple who went down the road and went into a joint venture with a bachelor farmer down the road because they couldn't get along with their family. So I don't recommend that. That's not what families typically want, but you do have options. So the first thing about conflict now that's different is I think there are a lot more options and opportunity in agriculture, but that doesn't take care of, Elaine, what about all the 11 years of sweat equity that I would be leaving behind? Because I've been working on a promise for 11 years to get what I want, and Dad said, this will be the year. Trust me, son, after harvest. Trust me, daughter, after harvest, we'll sit down and get this all figured out. Okay, so this is the year, 2020. You have lots of distractions and stuff that's been taken away from you. And so you make the appointment with the advisor, you make the appointment with the lawyer, you start putting your planning binder together. And folks listening to this, just go to farmfamilycoach.com. I have 19 free tools in my toolkit that'll get you fired up after you eat the turkey on Sunday night.
But are there differences between men and women and how they react to some of these things, or is that kind of pigeonholing the two sexes?
Yeah, well, you and I could get accused of being sexist, so we'll try and not go down that road. But the difference, I think, is in personality type. So my husband, who you know, Sean, is very action-directed, very concise, uses very few words. Wes
is a man of few words. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, my husband is a man of few words. And sometimes I need him to use more words. My style of communication is called people or relationships. So I want to know how your son's doing with his baseball career and how your wife's doing and your dad and your grandpa and all that stuff. My son is an idea communicator, so he wants time to be able to explain his idea of cover cropping and how he's going to plant the fall rye and all that good stuff. So, and then my daughter-in-law is very detail-oriented. So if you look, I wouldn't say the differences in conflict are different between male and female so much, although men typically want to have they want reporting and data, whereas women typically want rapport, which is relationships. So women are really more highly attuned in a lot of farms dynamics that I work with around everybody getting along. And the men just want to get solutions. And so sometimes you have to do a dance between what people need for information and what people need for a relationship.
Well, so we have a question here from Brian, and I think it ties very nicely into this. We're here. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Do you get families to do the test on what their personalities are so they know how to talk to other and sort of relate to each other? So, for example, like the DISC personality or the Myers-Briggs, doing those kind of not breaking it down by sex, because then we're making assumptions, but actually doing personality tests to get a better understanding of why somebody's reading and reacting the way they are.
So that's a really good ask, Brian. So I do different assessments. The one that I like to use or have been using the most recently is called the conflict dynamic profile, Sean, and it's not around personality, it's around how you do conflict. And so your 5 positive conflict behaviors, the destructive ones, and then also what your hot buttons are. And if anybody wants to do that test, all they have to do is reach out to me and we can get that set up online. The other personal style assessment that I like to use is by Dr. Ken Keese, who's out of Abbotsford with CR Leader Group, and he has a book called Why Aren't You More Like Me? And I've done that one with over 100 families where people need to understand. And I did it on Ian and Kendra actually before they got engaged. So you can talk to my daughter-in-law how she felt about that. But she actually really liked it because we talked about how we're all different. And so Wes's style is ambitious, determined. My style is called influential. Ian's style is called responsive balance because he's great in sales. He's great on our farm with people relationship. And my daughter-in-law's style is called practical. She's very perfectionistic and pays high attention to detail, which is great because she's also trained as a nurse. So when we find out how different we are, then we also know that Elaine should not be doing the books. Elaine should be doing the off-farm coaching kind of work because that's her style. Wes is very task-oriented, and you can imagine what happens on our farm a day like today when it's really windy. And Wes got out early this morning and sprayed 3/4 of field for, pre-seeding work. And I don't know what Ian was doing today, but I know I was taking care of Kendra's children this morning so that she could go and do something she needed to do. Anyway, long story short is, yes, assessments are a good thing. And there's a free one on my website on communication style. So you could start there this weekend and go into my Farm Family Toolkit and find out what your communication style is, whether you're people, process, idea, or action oriented.
It's a lot of fun to do. And the reason I say that is because I've done it a couple times with boards that I've sat on. Yeah. And when you go through that process, it's not, it's one thing to sort of do the realization that, yeah, that's pretty much me. But the fun part is when everybody identifies, what color they are, what code they are. It's like, yes, that's why you do that. And that's why it drives me crazy.
So for all the Colby fans out there, I'm 6734. For Myers-Briggs, I'm extroverted and perceiving. And for Strength Finder fans out there, I'm communication, winning others over, positivity, lifelong learning, and all that stuff. So no, we all do it, but it's good if you actually put it into practice and use it after you've done it, Sean.
Don't you think, Elaine, when it comes to trying to hash some of these issues out inside the family farm business unit, a part of it is also being disciplined. And I think of pushing buttons. So, I'll use my own experience. So, my dad and I have worked together inside of our family farm business when we had it. And now we share an office here with 2 separate businesses. And we work very, very close together. I could walk down the hall and know exactly what I could say to him to throw him through the roof. He knows the exact same similar things with me to kind of get buttons going, and we both, I would say, don't do it at all anymore compared to maybe 10 years ago. It requires discipline sometimes in conflict not to start pushing those buttons to just drive the other person crazy.
I think it also requires good sleep, Sean. Like I've just did the Do More Ag Talk, Ask, Listen workshop this week with Adele Stewart. It was really good. And she put up this slide that was really scary about the impairment of lack of sleep. And I want to challenge a lot of myths that we have in agriculture. And one of them is that we have to work 24 hours, 24/7. And so I think hot buttons start getting pushed a lot more easily when people haven't slept well, or like right now, when you're at the end of harvest, everyone's exhausted. They've gone all out, and yet they still want to push hard to get the fall work done because the weather's great. And I think we just really need to pay attention of ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally. And also just tell people, like I often ask Wes, did you have a good sleep last night? Like I want to know. I want to know how he's feeling physically. And if I'm feeling overwhelmed or too much is on my plate, I just say, hey, man, that's not a realistic expectation for me right now. And I think, Sean, I've known you for quite a long time, and I'm really, really happy to see the gains that you've made with your business and also how you relate to your dad and the businesses you do with him. And I think that's something that we should celebrate, is that none of us are perfect, but we're all in process. We're all on a journey of getting better. And so what would it look like this fall if you did some inner work around getting better as a person on how you speak and listen and respect other people on your team, and how you're more self-aware as to what works for you and what doesn't? Because what doesn't work for me is people who won't talk to me. I cannot stand it when people keep stuff in their head and I have no idea what they're thinking. So aloofness would be one of my hot buttons.
Oh, interesting. Lara says, watching on YouTube, so maybe don't have family meetings at midnight when everyone's tired just because we're all there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And it's the rest and sort of the reset and everybody being, I think that's important. If you are going to tackle, let's work out our family farm succession plan, do it when there's a bit of freshness to everybody's mindset, and you're not in the middle of the grind of planting or harvest, and kind of set the stage to set yourself up for success, because these are tough enough discussions as it is. Don't create a context around the meeting that you're really setting yourself behind the eight ball, so to speak.
Well, and older farmers tend to do that, Sean. They say, Elaine, I can't screw this up. I only have one chance to get this right. And I said, well, then I think you better work with someone else, because, no one can guarantee how the journey is going to unfold, Sean. But what we can guarantee is that there'll be an awakening and awareness of what people are really thinking, feeling, needing, and wanting. And isn't that a wonderful discovery process, not to be sitting in the dark anymore? And also, I want to speak especially to the daughter-in-laws and the son-in-laws that are on these farm teams, because they're the ones that come from a different family of origin who celebrated Thanksgiving in a totally different way. And they're just going, Elaine, I just don't get this family. They don't talk, and they get mad, and they throw things, and they just walk away from each other. And I said, in my family, we just talked it all out, hashed it all out, and everything was good by 8 o'clock the next morning. So it's a real blending of communication styles, personal styles, conflict styles. So it is complicated, but you know what? It's not impossible, Sean. And that's what I want people to understand, is that you can do this with a really good expectation about we're going to do this right. We're going to go through a process. We're going to be in a journey with a roadmap. There might be little side trails that you take, just like when you're going down the road and you see something interesting and say, oh, let's stop for a sec, or let's check this out. But as long as you're going technically in the right direction, don't beat yourself up along the way. And again, I also want to encourage people, you get what you pay for. So get really good people on your advisory team, and you can do that by word of mouth referrals. And there's a lot of CAFA friends of mine, the Canadian Association of Farm Advisors, all across Western Canada. You tell me where you live, I can refer somebody to you. And we work as a team too. I just did a really tough farm situation with Bob Stocks from Regina, who's an old mediation friend of mine. And man, that guy's good, and he's seasoned, and that's the kind of person I want in my back pocket. And In BDO now we're also doing this digitally. So with Brian Huck and my friend Brent Van Paris out of the Woodstock office with BDO down in Ontario, I'm working all across Canada now, Sean, with Farm Succession Plan through Zoom. And if I need other people on my team, I know who to refer them to. And accountants, I think, are really happy because they say, oh, let's let Elaine deal with the family stuff. And that's fine.
Oh,
that's what they do.
The accountant copping out. Deborah watching on Facebook says, the dynamics as a family unit or an individual is continually changing as we age. That's the kind of that's the interesting thing here is that, 1 minute you're the young, the youthful generation wanting change and, wanting to be a piece of the pie. And then all of a sudden you snap your fingers and you're the oldest generation and you're trying to maybe hold on to things a little bit too long.
Right. And so, will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? That's my birthday song, Sean. I'm turning 64 in a couple of weeks.
Oh, congratulations.
And but I've been without my mom for over 23 years because she died at age 65, 6 weeks after our family meeting. And that's really been my fire under my story for doing this work, is because I want every farm family that's listening to this to be rich in relationship and have a great balance sheet, and to also know how they've secured the legacy of their business and their relationships as a family. So I think it's just really important to know that you can't take it for granted that people are always going to be there. And where is it written that your dad's going to die first?
Yeah.
Because I lost my sister when she was 23 years old. So my personal story has lots of fuel for doing farm succession in a really holistic and wholehearted way.
You mentioned in-laws. That's a curious group, because people that have married into the family can either be an amazing asset as an external observer, and not external from coming in from external sources.
Right.
They can be a huge asset. They can also be really a divider, and so I think that is they play a role that is incredibly complicated, and it to me it's very fascinating. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So we just did I just have a new YouTube up thanks to Tracy Burnett of Impact Farm Marketer. We just did a whole hour video on farming's in-law factor. So I'd appreciate if people just go to Elaine Froese, Farm Family Coach on YouTube, and they can watch that. But when we talk about the in-law factor, Sean, I have a blog called How to Prevent Divorce on the Farm. It's got 14 different points. It was my most popular blog in 2016. But old farmers, all kinds of ages of farmers, would always come up to me after I spoke at live events and say, Elaine, I really have this problem. And I go, what's her name? And they said, how did you know? And I said, well, I'm not being unkind, but what are you doing to show love and respect to this person? And we all need love and respect, Sean. And that sounds maybe too basic, but everybody at your table needs a voice. And there's a lot of in-laws who are not getting a voice. And the other problem with in-laws that I see in the farm dynamic is people will say, oh, Elaine, everything was fine until he got married. And I said, well, yeah, of course, because he started a new family unit when he got married. And now he and his wife have to agree on what is valued to them and what is not. And when your values, when what you believe to be true is not aligned with what you're experiencing in a farm family, you are really not happy. And so my curiosity, again, is to ask, what is it in our family that is working for you as an in-law, and what is not working for you? And that's a very powerful question to ask, but you have to be able to also receive the answer. And, my daughter-in-law lives 59 steps away from me, just across that shelter belt to my south here. And she came up to me and she said, I know I'm going to break your half-mile rule, Mom, calls me Mom, but I want the new house. And so she did get the brand new house, and I didn't. And I'm totally good with that. But if I ever sense any tension with her as the in-law, my first question is, are you okay? And is this about me? And she goes, I'm exhausted. We have 3 little kids. I haven't been sleeping well. And then my next question might be, what would you like me to do differently? Because when you use the question, what would you like me to do differently, you're opening up to create possibility with that other person. But I have to tell you another Thanksgiving story. I'm working with a farm family where I just discovered that the daughter-in-law wore a brand new sweater to Thanksgiving, and the in-laws were really mad because they didn't think she needed any new clothes.
Oh goodness.
Just
That
going,
oh
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And some of your listeners on Facebook are going, "Oh, Elaine, that sounds like I've been in that room."
oh yeah.
So again, mercy triumphs over judgment. I just want everyone to sit with that thought. Mercy triumphs over judgment. And here's another good line for you. Different is not wrong. It's just different. And so how do we embrace differentness? Because your son or your daughter, when they marry and bring a new shareholder into the business who's their spouse, you may also have some kind of way of keeping the spouses out of it. And Sean, this is 2020. And you said right in your introduction question there, Elaine, sometimes those external people can bring fabulous gifts and skills to the operation and to the family. And I totally agree. And I think that when you shut down or cut out an in-law, you're being very, very unwise. So I do have a book called Farming's In-Law Factor, and I do have a video. So whoever's asking questions about in-laws, I just would direct you to those things and reach out to me, and I'd happily give you a half an hour of my time to encourage you some new direction.
Can we get a question here, Elaine? This is an interesting one. So, and I when I saw this question, I thought of, and I don't know your situation, but a lot of farms look at it and be like, "Yeah, I'm not sure if anybody here is going to like take this over. My succession plan might not be what I thought it was." But so the question from Brian, he says, "What's your succession plan with your family coaching business? Are you mentoring someone to take that over?" So what does that look like for a person that helps others?
Right. So if that's from Brian Both, thanks for that question, Brian. I actually have a succession plan, and I'm happy to announce to you here today that I am working with a business strategist, Sean, and I've done a SWOT analysis of ElaineFroese.com, and I am going to coach coaches and be a mentor to coaches. And I also don't think that 64 is an age to retire out of this, because I'm passionate about what I do. So my succession plan is to build a stable of coaches. And I'm also already doing that internally with my consulting role with BDO. We have a monthly webinar where it's called Coach the Coaches. And so I am training people all across Canada in my skill set and my approach and my mindset. And if anyone listening to this wants to join my wannabe coach file, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.
Oh, that's cool. That's congratulations.
Thank you. Because I am gonna not be doing the work anymore, but I want to keep speaking well into my 70s. So I have speaker friends, Sean, who are in their mid 70s who are pulling six figures. So that was in the days of when we had live events.
Yeah. Yeah. No more live events. That's over. We don't do that. We don't do that anymore.
I don't know. You and I could do a whole other live show on the future of trade shows in agriculture too.
So we're going to wrap up here right away here, Elaine. But question for you: what happens in that situation where somebody doesn't want to take over the farm? I guess it's just basically like you play the string out and sell it, or what do you do?
No. So in our work, we have a business transition. It's called the BTS team, Business Transition Services. And so we actually have a program called Exiting Right on winding down the farm. So if you just Google, Country Guide had an article just recently this fall called Winding Down the Farm. And there's an art to doing that as well, Sean, because it might not be what you thought. And then you're going to have all this capital, or you might want to be a landlord, or you might want to adopt a non-family member as a joint venture partner. So there's all different ways that you can wind down a farm when you don't have your own successor in your own family.
Awesome stuff.
But do it right. It's called Exit Right.
Yeah.
So
it is important to do it right. And it's from an estate standpoint, it's all you do it right from the tax side of it. There's a lot of things to consider. And I have a friend where, they was sort of a quick decision. No one's coming back. Well, I'm just selling, and they did it terrible. They paid way more in tax than they they ever should have because somebody didn't make a couple phone calls and ask some
Well,
questions.
and I'm also familiar of another situation. I won't even tell you what industry it's in because I don't want to identify the family, but they've just sold their farm this week, and the mom has been working with me, and we're going to have a family meeting because selling a farm also involves grief and loss, Sean, and it's a loss of tradition and legacy. And I wrote a story a long time ago in one of my early books, I think in Planting the Seed of Hope, called How to Say Goodbye to the Farm. I remember one time a dairy farmer called me. He said, Elaine, I can't stop crying. Why am I crying? I said, Charlie, it's because you sold your cows and you loved your cows. You had a relationship with those Holsteins. And he said, seriously? I said, yes, Charlie. So let's talk about it. So I always say counseling is about, I'll start again. Counseling is about recovery and getting better, but coaching is about jumping and going forward. And I just want everybody to have a really good weekend and approach your family gathering with what can we discover more about each other that will help us understand each other better? Because that's such a sweet spot to be in, Sean, when your family really likes to get together for Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. Our family has a bit of a tradition where we go around the table and we say what we're thankful for, which creates some real moments of comedic relief, as well as some really touching moments as well. So I think that's really, really great advice, Elaine.
Well,
sure.
we do the same thing, but we actually put 2 kernels of hard seed corn on the plate, and people pick up the corn and put it in a little basket as they pass it around the table.
You got props and everything. You're
I love
you're
props.
upping me.
It's my 4-H background. I can't help myself.
Hey, well, you know what? This has been great. It's been fantastic talking to you, Elaine. I really appreciate your time today. I also appreciate all the comments and questions from the audience. This is a challenge of succession and managing a farm business that is, it's super hard. It's not easy. Planting the crop and harvesting the crop is probably the easiest part of all. It's this part that's hard, right? So I really appreciate your input today, Elaine. And your new book is out. They can order it on Amazon, correct?
Yep, and it's Farm Coach Insights. I took a photograph of it here. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but it's just out, and I don't even have hard copies yet, and haven't got my author copies. But most people, the other thing, Sean, I'd like farmers to know is I do have an audio book called Building Your Farm Legacy. I had one farmer who bought the new book and said, Elaine, can you have this in audio? And so I have about 3 other books that I should turn into audiobooks to help all of you who are, with your earbuds in while you're doing all those great farm chores. I love it too. I'm always listening to podcasts while I'm working outside, and I think that's a great way to keep growing, learning, and sharing and caring for each other.
Yeah, good RealAg Radio. It's a good podcast. I like it. Yeah, it's quite biased, but yeah, absolutely. Hey, Elaine, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Okay, have a great Thanksgiving, everyone. Okay. Blessings on your journey. Remember to be thankful every day of the year.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody, thanks a lot for tuning in today. I want to mention, check out Mind Your Farm Business. It is a great podcast that we produce here at Real Agriculture. Elaine has actually been a guest several times. We have a new episode coming out with her very, very soon. Check it out at mindyourfarmbusiness.com, or you can download it at Apple Podcast, any of your favorite Android podcatchers. So please check that out, mindyourfarmbusiness.com. Everybody, have yourselves a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us here on our first ever Friday edition of the show. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And have yourself a great Thanksgiving. Thank you very much for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Live. And we'll see you again next week. Cheers, everybody.